Joining me. I'm Allison. This is Where I'm From, 107 with Katie. What are you reading? I'm reading The Heart and Other Monsters by Rose Anderson, which is about the loss of her sister. I was a little nervous about it because her sister overdosed, and drug stories are hard for me, but it's much more than that. It's an incredibly beautiful book, and emotional, and I thought for me, as someone who had a sibling who died, it really tapped into the ache of that loss. um, and form wise it was really interesting, and I found myself really engaged and wrapped up in it, even though it was about a topic that can be really challenging. Hi, Katie.
Hello. Hi, Allison. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thanks for joining me. So we, I think, met through Natalie, is that right?
Yes, Natalie's
Okay.
a
Okay.
wonderful human being.
She is. I'm grateful that we've crossed paths, and now we're in the same book club, which
Oh,
is a special treat.
nice.
Hmm.
What are you reading?
We just read The Leaving Season by Kelly McMasters, and we had a great conversation about it. So we need to pick our next book.
Exciting.
Yeah, that's always like making you gotta take the next book, but
Right, right away. And
everyone's got a lot going on.
well, I'm sure that's kind of a hard choice. There's so many good books out there.
There's so many great books. Are you reading anything right now that
I
you
am. I am reading my first book by Emily Henry, Book Lovers.
Okay. And
Kind
you're
of like
enjoying
a
it?
beach read,
Mm-hmm.
celebratory, entering into the fall season.
Mm-hmm.
We're going back to school, so I have a little bit of time and space.
Yes.
So I'm enjoying that on audio because it's a light read, so I can
Mm-hmm.
listen to it when I'm doing other things, but I feel like it's transporting me away from, just the busyness of life in my own way.
Yes, that's nice. I'm ready for fall. I am.
Yeah,
I I like fall.
I do
It's
too. I love fall.
yeah.
I mean, I love summer for all the adventure and all the
Hmm.
fun and all the connection. Everyone's outside. You see more of your neighbors than you ever do.
That's true. That's true. We love our neighbors, so we're very lucky.
Nice.
Yeah.
Where are you located?
Los Angeles.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. You are in
I'm
Portland?
in Bend, Oregon.
Oh, okay. Well, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Well, are you ready to read your poem?
Yes, I am. Let's do this.
Okay, I'm ready.
Here it is. I'm from Roller Skates on the Driveway, from a Fisher Price boombox and Olivia Newton-John's Physical lasting on cassette. I'm from raw flank steak marinating on the counter, teriyaki sweet, garlicky, and cool on my fingertip with a dip. I am from the willow whose leaves fall like sheets of rain, her trunk a wide womb split opened into two branches, easy to climb and peaceful to sit. I'm from mom's spaghetti and meatballs and the wooden spoon banging on the table counting time. I'm from taut sheets of tidy beds and clutter-free counters, from the kitchens of Marge and Kirby. I am daughter and granddaughter. I am from micromanagers and the forgetful and neglectful. I am from a Disneyland dad, and you got yourself into this, now get yourself out, mom. I'm from ABBA thundering through the house and Sunday service only on Easter. I'm from Mountain View and Palermo and marinara with red wine and walnuts cracked from shells right into the bowl on the coffee table at Grandma Marge's. I'm from the desert where we gathered to scatter Grandma's ashes over the mountains of Albuquerque. I am from the pre-dawn torch fire burning into the belly of balloons that illuminate the desert sky and pockets of rose, maroon, canary, and turquoise as the sun slowly rises to note the passing of time. I am from women who were told to stay quiet and get to work instead of being silly girls, free and young and happy. I am from the memory of who we could have been, radiant balloons in a desert morning sky.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think the journey of writing poetry for me is always a curiosity because it's just this raw discovery of what comes through.
Mm-hmm.
And release the need to understand exactly what it all means.
Yeah. Yeah, and it can be really surprising, right? What comes through.
Yeah,
Yeah. So is that what the experience was like writing the poem for you?
it
Was it?
was. It was. I think the challenge was choosing
Mm-hmm.
concrete details that really felt um, representative of this whole feeling.
Mm-hmm.
The hallmark images that I still return to
Mm-hmm.
that are like touchstones to bigger, deeper memories, like the
And were
willow.
you surprised by any of those, or like the willow tree or the hot air balloons?
I was. I was surprised to remember the nutcracker and the walnut
Mm-hmm.
and the stories that attach to these things. Usually there's more than one. The story of my experience growing up with bowls of walnuts and shells on our own coffee table, but understanding that began as a ritual in my mother's house when she was a child from my grandmother. And that carried over from her experience as a child growing up in the Depression,
Mm-hmm.
having to crack the nuts because it was a cheaper process of getting nuts
Yes.
into the diet.
Mm-hmm. That's so
Yeah.
interesting. I thought of the roller skates and Olivia Newton-John obviously made me think of Xanadu
Oh, yeah.
immediately.
Big fan. That was me on the driveway.
Yeah, it's like, oh wow. I have not rewatched that film, but I remember being the only fan of it in my household
Oh, me
and
too.
everyone else just thinking it was trash. But it holds a really special spot in my memory because felt so magical. Like, and it
Totally.
felt like it and like touched on some, I don't know, like my inner imagination of when I was roller skating. I was
Right.
also a
Like,
goddess brought
of
to earth.
course, of course, with all of your magical sisters as your tribe of women.
I think we were the target audience of that movie.
I
Like
guess so.
children,
Yeah,
which it was
children,
not a
10-year-olds.
children's film at all. But I
No,
think
I mean,
everyone else thought it was so corny, but it was like, no, this is actually this is a this is a biography of little girls who roller skate. This is what they're
from the
experiencing.
80s.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
my teddy bear I still have is named Sunny, the love Jesus. So just to bring that back home.
Yeah, I haven't rewatched it, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to because it lives in my imagination.
Yes. Yeah, don't
And I
ruin
haven't
it
seen
by
yeah,
watching
and I
it.
haven't seen the musical. Although a friend tells me I should, that it's excellent, and that I
Okay.
will like be exactly what I want it to be.
That it's the
Um,
bridge to the next generation, the musical.
yeah, and then so did you grow up in New Mexico with the
No,
hot air balloons? No, okay.
no, but my uncles, my mom had three brothers. I also have three brothers, so
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of an interesting link. Um, and two of her three brothers moved to New Mexico, and my grandparents just discovered the desert in the second half of their lives and loved the desert. So I think that's why my uncles ended up moving there because there was this like sort of family discovery of the power of the desert. And now I live in the
Mm-hmm.
high desert in
Yeah.
Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
And so I definitely feel like there's this kismet sort of energy that we all share there. And that was the first time I went when we went to scatter her ashes.
Mm-hmm.
And we did attend the balloon festival.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a memorable
It
experience that
seems beautiful. I've never ridden in the hot air balloon, but it's like something I would like to do, but I don't want to get up at 3 in the
I
morning.
know.
So.
I was not in the hot air balloon. I was definitely watching them all, freezing my butt off because it was freezing in that hour in the morning. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I love this poem because it's such a great template for bringing out something new every time.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you can return to it. Did you find yourself having different versions or did you settle on
Well,
this one easily?
I have done this myself. I used to be a teacher, so I used to
Yes.
bring it to the students. And then also I was on a retreat and we did this in company and shared it. And it was I had a totally different poem.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't find it, and I'm kind of glad I didn't find it because it, it made me sit down and do it
Mm-hmm.
again. Not that I would have given you the old version, but I would have liked to have read the other. So yeah, maybe I'll find the other one again and see where it compares. I think the willow tree made it into both at some point.
Yeah. I mean, it's an incredibly evocative tree, I find. I was thinking, listening, I grew up on the beach, which is a wonderful thing. And it was very important in my poem and in my life. But I always had fantasies about trees
Yeah.
because, of course, I didn't have them. And like a tree as your friend and as
Mm-hmm.
your companion. And I felt that way about the ocean. But I think their trees are
It
incredible.
was definitely at my safe
Mm.
place. It didn't have a house in it or anything,
Mhm.
not even a rope swing, but
Mhm.
it didn't need anything. It was just perfect for what I enjoyed about
Yeah.
it. I was able to get really high because of the big, hefty, low branches, and it was like having my own little house
Mhm.
in nature. I incidentally moved back to that community that I grew up in. I moved away originally when I was 12, which was a seminal period in my life, of any kid's life.
Yeah.
And then moved back after I became a mother. I had a 6-month old and lived there for a couple of years. And I took the family by the house, and the tree had been cut down.
Mm.
So it was really like, it was really symbolic just for how much had changed where I was in my life. And just, I don't know, there's
Yeah.
something about that loss of childhood and those symbolic elements of our childhood that are so powerful.
Yeah.
So,
That's one thing about the ocean. You can't get
yeah,
it
it's never
down.
going away. No.
There
Although
it is.
yeah, you've probably seen it change in other ways, subtle ways too.
I have. But there is something, I grew up in a really populated, dense area. So it doesn't like the houses get newer or nicer, but it doesn't have that like, I don't, it's different.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's different.
loss associated with it.
Yeah.
Right.
And where I moved when I was 14. We moved to Colorado and we planted trees. So now, when we first moved there, and now for me, it's seeing those trees like we've planted a spruce that's now, I don't know, like, you know, 3 stories high
Oh,
or 2.5 stories high.
cool.
So
Yeah.
that's like a fun, it was
Another.
like as tall as me.
That's
Now
awesome. Yeah, that indicator of how much
yeah,
time has passed.
yeah. And I remember when we planted it, it was like, well, someday it'll be, in 20 years it'll be, and we're like, 20 years. Like, I couldn't conceptualize 20 years when
Yeah,
I
where
was
am I going to be in
14.
20 years?
Um, yeah, so nature's nature's for me is always a good reminder of time is kind of how we perceive it is up to us.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And the value of a thing or the value that it presents, what it offers you in your life, like how you can engage with it.
Yeah, and I always like the reminder that I'm tiny, a small thing involved in this large
Yeah.
world that's, I like the pressure being taken off because
Yeah.
well, as a kid especially, I put a lot of pressure on myself. So I liked being reminded, oh no, it's okay. Like there's all these other things happening that you don't have any control over.
Yeah.
They're going to happen no matter what you do. It's like, oh,
Okay. Phew. I can't screw this up.
right. The ocean waves will continue to crash on the beach no matter what
Uh-huh.
I do, whether I roller skate or not.
Right.
It's all going to be okay. So, any other thoughts about your experience, or I don't know, teaching it, or
Well,
anything you want to talk about?
I do a lot of work with women leaders in my role as coach, and I'm definitely more aware as I age, maybe as I grow closer to those menopausal years, and I feel my own transition in my body and middle life and whatnot, and the kids are in middle school, and I don't know, just being the reflective thinker that I am, I was really connecting to um, just the storyline of the women in my family and
Mm-hmm.
just the theme of womanhood and ancestral connection
Mm-hmm.
to the matriarchal line. And so I think there's a lot for me to just explore in that on my own. And it really was coming through in the poem. Of course, it's inevitable being raised by a single mom that there is a very dominant female storyline of
Mm-hmm.
my life. So yeah, I was just appreciating that and really leaning into it by the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wrote one initially, and then I wrote one this year, and I think I'm gonna try to write one every year just to kind of as an exercise and see what I reflect on. And definitely the second one was much more like the first one. Definitely my mom's in there, but the second one, my matrilineal line. My parents were divorced, so I wasn't technically a single mom, but she was certainly my primary caregiver, like by far. And um, and those stories. And I think I was just reading an essay talking about, how trauma is like the word, and we all talk about it, and it's much more at the forefront than it ever was when we were children, and um, how that intergenerational trauma or experience, whatever word you want to use, it does really impact our lives.
Yeah,
And
it carries a line through.
yeah, and I like that about this poem because our experience is centered, but it is also a nod to what has come before us, and that feels true to me.
Yes, and I think there was a piece of me that for a moment hesitated and reflected on like, is there a balance between the light and the dark here?
Yeah.
Is it too much of one or the other? And I just let go of worrying about it and just
Mm-hmm.
let it come through. But I think I I feel that what came through is certainly a blend, but it was potent to sort of be with some of these more shadowy, harder
Mm-hmm.
to be with memories too, mixed in with the light, mixed in with the joy and the fun and all of it. And I think that's common for our reflections on childhood. There's a lot that we feel comfortable being with, and there's a lot that just kind of pokes in at the edges,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to be seen, wanting to be integrated, wanting to be accepted. And so I think for me, poetry is a beautiful way of being in discovery of what that is, and also finding a way of finding place for it in a line, in a stanza, and
Mm-hmm.
on the page.
I agree. And I think also becoming a parent and getting older and all of those things there, I have more, I don't know, perspective and compassion and understanding, but like about childhood, like what it was.
Yeah.
Looking at them like, oh, that's childhood. Okay. I don't know. It's complex,
It's
but
complex.
I like this poem because it is a way in, and these aren't conversations, especially as we get older. When you go to college, you're like, "Where are you from?" and
Right.
Where'd you grow up?" and "What's your deal?" And as you get older, it's like, "Oh, do you have kids? What do you do?"
Well,
And
yeah, I think you discovered a new way of getting to know someone. Just give me your I am poem and let's start unpacking these things. What was happening when you were sticking your finger in marinade? It was raw steak. What were you thinking?
yeah, but you like that it was cool, I
Yeah,
guess.
and
That's good. Did you
it
ever
was
get food
and it was the
poisoning?
garlic and the teriyaki. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I shouldn't be doing it, so I was doing it.
Uh-huh. So it was kind of exciing.
I think so. That's a theme of my life that's continued. So yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
well, any last thoughts, Katie, before we wrap?
I mean, no, this has been really fun. I appreciate just having the conversation, the opportunity to get to know you and be a part of this fantastic, inspired project.
Thank you. It has grown in ways I did not anticipate, which is always the best thing when
That's
something
a
just sort of
delightful surprise.
has a life of its own. It's like, oh, okay, great. So it's a pleasure for me to sit down with someone once or twice a week and have these conversations. I did. They say, create something you always wanted and that you needed,
Yeah.
and I guess I did. I do like having these conversations, and you can't. It's harder to go up to someone you've just met and say, hey,
Yeah, it
what
is.
are like 10 things from your childhood? Just go ahead.
I, I mean, I guess you could backward engineer these poems too. You know,
Mm.
get to know somebody and then like ask them to populate it.
A
I
little
mean,
sneaky, like
it's amazing.
Mad Libs.
Mad Libs.
So,
Yeah, exactly.
mm,
It's great. No one can mess it up.
no, yeah,
Anything that you offer is fodder and good stuff.
yes, that's really the key to unlocking it. And I feel like that's being communicated over time. But at the beginning, people were much more nervous about doing it right. You know, I'm like,
Yeah, and
there's no right, just do it.
no, and the evidence is in just listening back to some of
Mhm.
your other
Yeah.
interviews, other guests who've read their poems. I mean, the poems are also
Mhm.
different, obviously, because we all have different
Mhm.
lives, but also in how they approach and release sort of the constraints of the rules, so to speak.
Yep. Yeah, I love it. I love being the person to say you're doing it
Yeah.
right, no matter what you're doing.
May we
That's
all
that's who I
lean
want to
further
be.
into that.
That's, that's who I want to be. Well, thank you so much, Katie. Enjoy
You're
the rest of your
welcome.
day, and I
Me,
appreciate your poem and your conversation.
yes, me too. Thanks, Allison.
Okay,
All
bye.
right, bye-bye.